Hey folks, welcome back to the Transplant Helper again today. My name is Jim Merle, and I'm extremely excited once again today to bring to you a program as a part of our new series, My Story, My Words, okay? And so I'm very excited that we've got a wonderful guest today. She is an avid advocate, if you can say those words together, of organ transplant, all things related. She's highly intelligent, as in she has educated herself because she is a 29-year heart transplant recipient survivor. And so she's pretty much been there and done that. You name it, she knows something about it. And so Karen Weinrib is with us, and I'm very excited. As a matter of fact, if we were flying a crow, she is probably about 40, 50 miles from me right now. So I'm thankful for that. But anyway, Karen, great to have you on the program. Let me ask you, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you so much for having me on today. My name is Karen Tischler Weinrib, and I am 50 years old, and as you said, I had a heart transplant 29 years ago and 1 week today. I am a former high school history teacher, former nonprofit career employee, and right now I'd like to say that I am either a full-time mother, patient, or volunteer, depending on the day. I've been married since 2003 to my husband, Dan, and we adopted a son named Jack 13 years ago. And so Jack and I are just hunkering down at the house during these virtual learning days, and I'm just really happy to be able to talk to you and your listeners.
Well, I understand that, and I know something about the adoption process as well. So thank you for doing that. It's very special to be able to reach out and to give someone in the family they would have otherwise probably never had. So thank you for that. But I was so impressed. I've been impressed with you by seeing your story along the way in some of these groups and the ways we've connected before. But I was so impressed a week or two ago when you were pointing out that you were coming up on your 29-year heart transplant anniversary. So that's so impressive. And immediately I said, we need to talk to her. And we were trying to get that done last week on your anniversary. It didn't work, but here we are today. So congratulations on that. So tell us a little bit about how you were first introduced to transplant. Obviously, it's more than 29 years ago, but what caused you to end up needing a transplant? What was that process like?
Sure. Well, I was born healthy in Winnipeg, Canada, back in 1970. And when I was 3 days old, I got a virus called myocarditis, and it gave me an enlarged left ventricle and a heart murmur. I was very sick as an infant and obviously don't remember any of that. And I grew up just seeing the pediatric cardiologist once a year in Winnipeg, and then a little bit in Birmingham, and then that eventually, faded away. And then in high school, I began to get arrhythmias, funky heartbeats, but I didn't want to tell anybody because I thought my parents would stop making me do marching band. Teenagers always think the smartest thoughts. So I began going to UAB to an adult cardiologist, and eventually he got me regulated to where I could go off to college with just 2 medicines, and I just couldn't do the strenuous gyms. Off I went to Emory University, acted like a regular college student, lack of sleep, stay up all night studying, get up early, go to class. And after my sophomore year, I went in to see Dr. Epstein for my annual visit, and he told me my heart was gradually getting worse. He said I would not live to see old age. I'd probably die before I was 30. I could not have children because the physical strain of pregnancy would kill me, and I might need a transplant one day. And honestly, the part about the transplant went in one ear and out the other, because it was probably 1990 or so, and I thought, I don't even want to think about this. And I may have met with the transplant cardiologist at that point briefly, but honestly, I just went back to college and tried very hard not to think about this. So flash forward now to the middle of my senior year, November 1991. I was getting really out of breath walking around campus, and I thought, well, Emory's very hilly, and I'm overweight, and I'm out of shape, and I just didn't think about it more. So off I went over Thanksgiving break to Canada with some of my relatives, both to visit relatives and to visit graduate school. And I felt lousy the whole time I was there. I was nauseous, and I couldn't breathe lying down flat, but I just thought maybe I have pneumonia or something, or I have a cold. Well, right before we were supposed to fly out of Canada, we're at my aunt's house for brunch, and I turned to one of my brothers who was with us, who was a medical resident at the time, and I said, by the way, I can't breathe. I ended up being rushed off in an ambulance to a hospital in Montreal, and it turned out I was in heart failure. And as you know, heart failure doesn't you feel like you're drowning internally.
Right.
And your heart never stops beating. It's just your lungs are filling with fluid. I was kept overnight at a hospital in Montreal, just given Lasix, a diuretic, and some potassium, and then flew back home. Not back to Emory in Atlanta. I went back home to Birmingham, and I convinced Dr. Epstein over the phone to let me stay at home one more night with another Lasix and potassium pill. And I went into UAB on Tuesday, and the test revealed my heart was 4 times too big. It went from chest wall to chest wall. It was end-stage heart failure. And the only option I had was to be evaluated for a heart transplant.
Right.
And, of course, I was very, very upset and afraid because if I didn't pass the evaluation, that was it. There were no other options for me. And I like to joke that I had a very quick evaluation. I got the heart before I completed all the psychological tests. But I was too sick to go home. In those days, you had a beeper. And
Right.
I was too sick to go home. So I went into UAB on a Tuesday. Well, let me come back to that. So I get into UAB on a Tuesday. My family doesn't leave my side until Saturday night. They go across the street to get dinner. Naturally, that's when Dr. Robert Borge and the entire transplant team comes in to tell me they're putting me on the transplant list. So I asked Dr. Borge, well, how long can I live with my own heart? And he said, Karen, you could die tonight or you could live 20 years. And I was 21 years old and hearing this.
Yeah.
So to abbreviate the story, I got into UAB on a Tuesday. I got on the list on Saturday night, and I got the heart on Monday, December 9th, 1991.
Yeah. Whirlwind. That's exactly what that was then.
It was very, very whirlwind. So I was on the list for 2 days or a day and a half. I'm not quite sure.
Wow. Yeah, that was actually my next question. How long were you on the list? That's not very long. So, but I will ask this to clarify. You were only on the list for that short period of time, but between the time of you first knowing that you needed a transplant till the time of transplant, how long was that again?
I would say a year and a half.
Yeah. So you bought some time.
Yes, from probably August 1990 to December 91.
Okay.
But during that, there's no internet then, and frankly, I did put it from my mind. I didn't do any research on it. It just really sounded like science fiction at the time. Because you didn't hear then about a lot of people having heart transplants.
No, they weren't near as common. And you made a statement in there that caught my attention as well. If they had said no, especially back then, you would have been out of luck. Nowadays, you see in these heart transplant groups, everybody, if one hospital says no, they're going to 10 more. I mean, they're just going to keep going until somebody says yes, is what it boils down to, which some centers do higher risk than others. So that can happen. But in your day, that wouldn't have been the case.
No. And then by sometime in the 90s, they started to do LVADs and ECMOs and all kinds of, ventricular assist devices. Those didn't exist in December of 1991.
Yeah, you predated most all of that technology as far as that goes. So there were no options. This was it, and thankfully it worked.
Well, UAB was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And we might get to this later in the talk unless you want me to mention it now, but they've also replaced some other parts for me as well since 1991. So I like to joke that as long as UAB keeps replacing parts, I'll keep on going.
That's right. We will mention that in just a moment. I know my story goes back almost 46 years, congenital such as you were, but mine began way back then as well, as far as my issues. And my doctors were Dr. Pacifico and Dr. Bargeron. And so Dr. Borge kind of crossed paths with a lot of those. So, but Dr. Bargeron and Pacifico. But Pacifico, when I had my surgery in 1975, he was much, much younger and very gung-ho. And he told me, it was 32 years later, I finally got to talk with him again after all that time. And he told me, he said, to be honest with you, he said, in that time of my life, I would have cut your head off and sewed it back on. I mean, I just wasn't afraid of anything. He said, I would be scared now, but it was a lifesaver for me because UAB, as well as doctors like we're talking about, were pioneers, and they were willing to take those chances on patients like yourself and mine.
Absolutely. And I truly feel like I was not a pioneer. The people who had heart transplants in UAB in 1981, 1982, they're the real pioneers. Like, yes, I've been a guinea pig for a whole bunch of things people don't have to do now, but I wouldn't have been around without those true pioneer heroes back in the early 80s.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I look forward here before long talking to a good friend of mine. He's had a heart transplant, but his dad had one, I don't know how long before, 20, 30 years before, and it was he was definitely among those right there as pioneers. So tell me a little bit, and this is what you're about to indicate. You've had some replacement parts, but tell me a little bit about your recovery, how that's gone for you.
Well, at the beginning, it was intense. Luckily I was out of the hospital in 12 days and had to pop right back in to get a Grosjean catheter.
Mm-hmm.
But at the beginning, I went to clinic 4 times a week, and that eventually lessened. I was on 41 pills and liquids a day, and that lessened. Lots of side effects. So eventually it was the clinic once a week, and every 2 weeks, then every month. For a long time, it was every 3 months. And now I just go into heart transplant clinic every 6 months, unless something funky happens, which it usually will once a year. Shingles here and arrhythmia there.
Yep.
But I don't go in to see them too often. I definitely see a lot of other specialists. I don't like to say there's a downside to transplant, but if there were one, it's just that there are a lot of side effects associated with the medicines and some of the procedures that one has to have.
Right.
But otherwise, I definitely feel healthy. I exercise 6 days a week now in COVID, really 7 days a week, about 2.5 hours a day. And I most certainly still have heart problems and health issues, but I make it a point to get in lots and lots of exercise every day and try and do what I can.
Right. Well, no doubt that's a tremendous help. I think when we were talking about doing this interview a week or so ago, you asked the question if it would be video or what, and your statement was something to the effect of, I didn't know if I needed to change out of my workout clothes, and I thought, wow, that's awesome. I don't even have workout clothes, but yes.
I'm still in them as we're talking.
Well, I'm glad that you're doing well, and so the parts that you have replaced or potentially could have replaced, tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Unfortunately, one of the side effects that often happens with years of biopsies is you get a nicked tricuspid valve.
Mm-hmm.
And my tricuspid valve started leaking, or I found out that it was leaking in the late 90s, but I kept checking along. And then in December of 2010, I'll have to back up a second. I had a major surgery already that year. But in December of 2010, I went into clinic about a week after Thanksgiving, and I mentioned, my ankles are still slightly swollen, probably from the salt of Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Well, next thing you know, they send me upstairs, and I'm meeting with Dr. Kirkland, who did my heart transplant surgery. And this is, at this point, 19 years later,
right,
because it had my tricuspid valve replaced. So I had my tricuspid valve replaced December 21st, 2010, so I'm almost on that anniversary. And it began leaking shortly thereafter, and it's been severely leaking now for several years. So I like to joke that I'm past the warranty date. The warranty on these valves is 5 to 10 years, and
right.
Well, I'm at the 10-year anniversary, but I just had my big annual exam about a week and a half ago, and heart pressures are still good, so, I keep on going a while longer until they tell me we have to replace it again, although this next time, hopefully, it'll be transcatheter.
Right.
But to back up, I decided that having a heart transplant did not get me enough attention. So I decided I needed a 1 in a million benign tumor that usually hits teenage girls, and instead I was in my 30s. I was 39. I had what's called an aneurysmal bone cyst over a giant cell tumor, pretty much my C7 vertebrae, and it was starting to press on my spinal cord. And so I had to have a major surgery, corpectomy and fusion in my neck. So a chunk of my neck has been replaced with a titanium cage filled with donor bone with a titanium plate in front of it.
Wow.
So not only am I a heart transplant recipient with a bovine valve, I have donor tissue, in this case bone, as well.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know about that. You definitely keep on keeping on, that's for sure, because you pushed through a lot to deal with that. And like I think you just used the words major, and I would probably put several more majors on behind that if I were speaking to myself. But yeah, that's I'm sure that was a shock when that came up, and even a bigger shock to know what was being done to fix it. But again, thankfully that they were able to do that. UAB's great, right?
They are great, and I unfortunately told the story out of order. So I had the neck done in May, I think it was, May 2010, and then unexpectedly, 7 months later, had to have open heart surgery again for the tricuspid valve. So that 2010 was not my favorite year, but then again, 2020 is trying to match it.
Yeah, there's some definite competition out there as far as the level of frustration. We've been thankful, we've been healthy so far here around our house, and because we do live far back in the country, we don't see a lot of people anyway, so this quarantine hasn't affected us as much, but there are certain aspects about it that have been aggravating. So sure. It's a tough year. So let's just hope and pray that you'll get another 10 years, and the next time this number comes around, this 10, 20, 30, it won't be nearly as bad for you.
Well, thank you.
All right, let me ask you this. So recovery's been okay, except for the bumps in the road and even some of the constant stuff that comes up. But tell me what you think, and this is be totally up to you. What do you think might be the worst, and I like to balance things obviously for the better, but the worst and the best thing that's come out of your transplants?
The worst thing is just a lot of the side effects from the medicines and procedures.
Mm-hmm.
So I have stage 3 kidney disease thanks to medicine. The biopsies gave me the leaking tricuspid valve. No one has ever been able to prove my neck tumor was due to immunosuppressants, but it is a question mark for me. And unfortunately, I do feel poorly every day after lunch. I get intense pressure in my chest. And the doctors could never give me a satisfactory answer. I've seen multiple specialists and had lots of tests. Why only after lunch? Why does this happen?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not related to the tricuspid valve. It may just be the age of the heart. It's not, I've had my heart 29 years, but I started feeling this after my tricuspid valve replacement.
Right.
So that has, prevented me from working for pay full time and a lot of things, because again, mornings are my time, but I feel really lousy every afternoon, which is challenging when you're raising a child.
Right. So I understand that. I tell people all the time, people will say, well, it looks so good on your videos and this and that. I'm like, hey, I'm faking it till I make it. There are many days that I still have, and I'm not complaining, neither are you, but there are many days where I just don't have to get up and go, and I get wiped out really easy, midday, afternoon, like you're talking. So, yeah.
No, but, I can fake it if I have to. If there is absolutely no choice, say I've got a teacher conference at 1:30 when I feel bad, I am the world's best actress. You'll never know. But then I'm like, I'm getting back to the car. I feel woozy and out of breath. But I can hide it. I should be Meryl Streep. I should get no work. But the best part of transplant, well, absolutely still being alive. I mean, I was 21 years old, unable to breathe lying down, and here I am 50 now, able to exercise every day and, be with my family. And I've been giving my transplant talks locally, regionally, nationally for 20-something years. And I used to always say, well, my favorite title is Auntie, because when I was in heart failure in Montreal, I had only one nephew, and he was with me.
Right.
And since then, I've had so many more, 7 more born in my family, 3 acquired by marriage. And then 13 years ago, my husband and I adopted a son, so now my favorite title is Mom.
There you go.
So, I mean, it's just amazing, and it was wonderful to have had the career I had. I managed to graduate on time with my class from Emory back in '92. Thank you, AP credits in high school. Be able to get, my college degree on time, 2 master's degree, teach at my alma mater, have a nonprofit career. Those are all wonderful, but really just to still be alive and to see more family be born and raise your own family, it's just been amazing, and I have no intention of stopping anytime soon.
I heard that. And I always summarize when I'm thinking about myself, or really when I'm talking with any other patient, if there's something that transplant gives, it's opportunity. And that opportunity could be a lot of different things for a lot of people, but opportunity is what sums it all up. And of course, opportunity contains time, so that's what we're looking for.
Absolutely. And I wrote this recently on a lot of the Facebook groups that I'm in, that I'm not certainly the longest lived survivor. There are people at least 9 years ahead of me, people who had their transplants, thank you, due to the introduction of cyclosporin, 81, 82. As long as they keep chugging along, I plan to as well.
Yeah. I tell people all the time that I want them to catch up with me. You know, I don't know if that's a good literal way, because in order for them to catch up, I'm going to have to give it up pretty soon, you know, at some point. But I want them to chase me, to be behind me, and I'll chase somebody else. Well, I'll keep going forward with that. So that's absolutely great. Well, let me ask you this then, and this is totally up to you, and I'm excited to hear your answer. What would be the best piece of advice you think you could give to someone who's either waiting or maybe has just shortly had a transplant?
I'll do both. If someone is waiting, don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. They have so many new technologies, so many new medicines to keep you going till you actually get your organ. You don't have to be famous. I was a 21-year-old college kid, for goodness sakes. For those who are recently transplanted or having difficulties with their journey, keep chugging along. I get asked pretty frequently, what's the secret to your success? You're so far out. I do exercise most days. I'm religious about taking my meds. You have to be proactive about your health. Make those doctor appointments. If you're questioning something, go see a specialist. Always bring a list of questions with you to your doctor's exams. Family support is crucial. And if you don't have family, your friends. But it's crucial that you have that support. Yes, diet is important. I try and do low fat, low salt, low cholesterol. Not as good as I used to be, but that up. And most important thing of all is be sure to eat some chocolate every day.
And, hey, if that's your advice, I'm going to get a Snicker bar. Maybe not a Snicker bar, but something. But I've definitely got a sweet tooth post-transplant. Some people will argue with me, but my donor was a very, very huge sweet eater. I've never in my life cared for any of it, but I sure do now. So whatever reason that is, but I'll take a piece of chocolate on that note and claim I'm trying to live longer. We'll go with that. But all right, great answer then. And you did point out, and what I want to point out as well, your system of caregivers makes a huge difference too. This is not a journey we can go it alone. You joked way earlier when we were talking about not completing the psychological or something like that.
I read all the psychological exams.
The key to the psychological, and the reason why they do it, is because this is going to take so much will, so much effort, and it's more than just you. It's got to be the family all in on it. Whoever is going to be your caregivers, they've got to know that, life won't be perfect, but it'll be good. And so they have to work with you very closely on that. So that's excellent. Well, anything else you want to add here? I think I've covered quite a few bases, but.
No, I mean, I'm used to giving talks where I'm trying to encourage people to be organ donors, and I know that your audience are people who are already fully, all in. But I will say I looked up today that as of today, December 16th, that there are over 110,000 people waiting on the list for a transplant. So anything that we all can do to spread the word, and you have to tell people, don't just have it marked on your license, talk with your family, share your life, share your decision, because if so many people, a lot of your listeners are waiting. That's what's going to help spread the word and get everyone to talk to their families about it.
That's right. And I traditionally, over the couple 3 years, I've always done videos at the holidays, little quick things, just to remind people. For example, Thanksgiving just passed. Hey, when you're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner, don't even be ashamed at all to raise your hand and say, hey, let me tell y'all what I'm thankful for, and just bring it up in front of everybody, because we are the best advocates possible. If we are, we're the ones with the transplants. We have the stories to tell. And in most cases in my life, 90% of the people I cross paths with have never known a transplant patient other than me, so how else are they going to be motivated except you tell your story? So I'm thankful that you've been willing to tell yours, not just here, but all that you've done in speaking in different platforms. That's definitely an advantage. And there's no telling how many lives are going to be saved eventually because of what you've said in front of various groups, because you're impacting others.
And absolutely, you as well, Jim.
Well, thank you. Ms. Karen, I do appreciate it. I appreciate you talking with me today. I hope that you just keep on keeping on and stay stronger yourself. And I hope that, as you go through these years, that you just keep stacking the years on top of one another. If that's, that's your plan. And hopefully they'll keep patching both of us up over at UAB. And so big shout out to UAB and all the doctors and nurses and coordinators and cleaning staff, because they're all a part. And I'm thankful for that. But
they are the best. UAB keeps us alive, and I love them.
Yes, there'll be others challenge it. And hey, if you want to think your system is better, then go for it. And I hope that you do. I want everybody to think they've got the best, because we all deserve the best. And that's what this comes down to. But thank you so much, Miss Karen. We're going to go ahead and close out for today. Let me ask you, I say something at the end of every program. It's the word "stay stronger." If you don't mind, I'm going to let you say that. So to each and every one of you, Miss Karen and myself, we want to tell you what?
Stay stronger.
Absolutely. Stay stronger, friends. Thank you, Miss Karen.